Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Losses Become Gains podcast. I'm your host, Tara Accardo. And as we're nearing the end of this year, I still can't believe it, I wanted to leave you with just some inspiration and things to noodle on as we close out 2023 and say a big hello to 2024. And one way I love to do this, whether we're entering a new year or not, is to do some visualization exercises, because visualizations are an amazing thing to do, whether you're grieving or not, let's be real. But I find that with grievers especially, we can be so lacking in hope, a way forward, direction, any semblance of a good full life after what we've been through. Loss and adversity certainly have a nasty way of stripping that from us, but I am here to challenge that a little bit today. So, not to fear, I assure you, I know this fact to be true, not only from my own experience with loss, but from those whom I have coached. This year was a really big, amazing, impactful year in that way, and I really just wanted to share some of these findings with you. But visualization exercises and prompts and meditations are super powerful, and they're very empowering as well when we do them intentionally and, really hone in and do them right. They can leave us feeling this semblance of hope and optimism and perhaps even some excitement when we feel like we just have very little left in us. So with that all being said, I'm sharing 7 ways to practice visualizing your best life after loss today. This is perfect for going into a new season of life or year, or it can be done on any old day, because why not, right? There's zero pressure here. That's the beauty of it. This is a practice I want you to come back to over and over again when you feel like you need it. There is no bad time. You can do this on a random old Tuesday or in the weeks leading up to a new year. So I want to mention that this will be pretty high level just for the sake of this episode today. We only have so much time, but my Intentional Life After Loss membership and community is where we really dig into this and take these actions and steps further and really own them and put this in our own hands to make this a really tangible and forward-thinking aspect of your life and processing your grief. That is the priority in my membership and community. And it's okay if you're not there yet. We're just planting seeds here as always, but wanted to make sure you knew that there is so much more to dig into here than just what we're getting into in this episode, right? Getting you back on your feet, feeling not only a sense of normalcy again, but really raising your frequency and your energy and the frequency and the energy of those around you, so you can really start to feel like there's more out there for you, for there to be things to be excited about, either after or even as you are going through a difficult time. Okay, so there's no bad time to start here. So let's just dig right in. First and foremost, exploring our values and our priorities. Before we dive headfirst into this process, into this visualization practice of ours, I think it's important to reflect on your core values and your priorities and your why, and getting in touch with your why in this process to better be able to visualize your best, most fulfilling life, which can look however you want it to. I challenge you to take these questions that I'm about to throw at you and journal about it, or write down your responses. Or if you're feeling a little adventurous, perhaps answer them in a voice note on your phone so you can really hear the inflection in your voice and what lights you up versus not. Sometimes hearing that out loud is really more impactful than anything. So I'll go through these a little bit quickly, but I'll try and pause a little bit in between each one so you can either write them down or pause and come back to them, whatever you want to do. So, number 1, what matters most to you? What brings you a sense of purpose and fulfillment? What sparks joy for you? What kind of life do you envision for yourself? And with that question, even get into the nitty-gritty. Where do you live? What do you do for work? Who surrounds you? When you think about these things, how does it make you feel? Is it expansive? Does it maybe contract you and overwhelm you? Either way, that's okay, but close your eyes and gauge how you're feeling. What is something you've never explored doing before, but maybe always wanted to? This next one is a little heavy hitting, but if you know grief, you know that this can be a reality. What if today was your last day here? What is it that you wish you could have done differently? And most importantly, with all of these questions, why do you want these things for yourself and those around you? That why is critical because that's what you will continue coming back to when things get tough. That is something I preach in my membership and community. When you might want to give up or it feels too overwhelming or too exhausting, that grounding, that centeredness of our why and why this is important to us and why this lights us up and why this sets our soul on fire, that is what's going to keep us going. Not me in your ear, not this podcast, although of course I hope it helps. But this self-discovery is crucial in guiding your vision for the future. And answering questions like this are a really important way to start this visualization process off on the right foot because it sets the tone, it gets us thinking, and inspires us when we're feeling less than inspired after everything that we've been through. So number 2 on my list is to set realistic expectations, especially in grief and after a difficult loss, or maybe multiple losses just piling on top of each other. Understanding that the process of rebuilding your life is gradual and unique and sacred to you is really important for level setting because it's not about other people, it's not about their opinions, and it's not about tamping down your dreams. I also want to make that clear, right? I want you to dream bigger than you have ever dreamt here. And setting realistic expectations isn't saying, man, I really want this, but this is so out of line. This isn't for me. There's no way this is possible. We're getting out of that defeatist mentality here today. Because to all of that, I say, says who? Who says anything on your list isn't something that you can embody, explore, or achieve or aren't worthy of? So if there's any self-doubt, I encourage you, don't belittle yourself or your hopes or your desires here. You are more than allowed to not only have those in your head, but then take it a step further and take that action and embody all of those things. So when I talk about setting realistic expectations, especially in grief, it's understanding that you just need to be patient with yourself as you navigate through the healing journey, because this does not happen overnight. We can get excited, have the best of intentions, want to do all the things, and I believe in all of that for you. Let me make that clear. And I want you to believe that too. But we also owe it to ourselves and our grief to process it all in due time. And loss and grief adds a layer of complexity here because as we're doing this, we're also trying to not forget and honor our losses or the people that we've lost and how that has impacted our lives. We're working through a lot of very complicated emotions and shifts in our reality that can make this process a little difficult, more difficult for, than people who haven't been through something like this. It can make it more overwhelming or something that we even feel guilty for doing. We want to move forward in a way that incorporates these things as a part of our story, as a part of our journey and who we are now. That's a really important piece of the puzzle that cannot be overlooked. And we might be triggered by something along the way. Sure, it happens. That's okay. We might feel guilt or taking the time to visualize these things for ourselves when a part of us feels like we're leaving someone or something behind, that is really hard to grapple with. I want to acknowledge that. There's this push-pull of like, oh, I don't want to leave them. I'm not ready, but like, I know I can't go on like this. I can't continue like this. There's more out there for me. That is all valid, right? But that guilt or regret or whatever, the fear that is holding us back, that cannot and should not stop us. So if you walk away with anything today, remember that, please. So number 3 is this is a little more tangible of an action item here, but create a vision board. Y'all, I love vision boards. I remember doing my first one at my very first corporate job back in college when I worked for Gap. I worked for Gap for probably like 8 years, and I loved it so much. I have done it every single year since then. And visualizing your goals and desires can be a really eye-opening, very fun, and really effective practice to do. If you don't do a vision board already, consider creating one that represents the life that you want to lead. But I want you to think outside of the box here. Don't just go sticking some pictures on there. Go beyond just wanting to take that trip to Hawaii next year and throwing a photo of Oahu on there and calling it a day. I mean, that's amazing, right? Go ahead and do that. But challenge yourself a little bit. As you likely know, the idea on these boards is to include images, words, symbols that resonate with your aspirations, both short-term and long-term. So you can look past the upcoming year here, right? Perhaps there are fitness goals, hobbies you envision yourself doing or learning, languages that you want to learn. That is definitely one of the things on mine. And also on mine, for example, I not only have photos of more tangible things I'd like and envision for myself, but as I was just mentioning, also words that really resonate with me, that will carry me throughout the year. I don't typically do New Year's resolutions. I used to back in the day, but now it's kind of like, you know what? I think there's this collective movement too around just more setting intentions for the year. And I love this so much. I've heard entrepreneurs do this too, but they kind of have like either maybe 1 or 2 or 3 words of the year. And they really tap into that and really kind of go in on all that. So for me, words that came up for 2024 are words like abundance, alignment, embodiment, opportunity. When I close my eyes and I think about what I want for myself in the following year, the vibes and the energy that I want around me, those words really resonated with me. So I incorporated them into the design, so go beyond the tangible here. Like I said, what feelings and emotions do you want around you too? And vision boards can really help with the motivational aspect, which for us as grievers is really so important. Motivation can be really hard to come by when we're in the thick of grief. I know, I've been there. So while I certainly do not want you to rush this process, and it is so good to be gentle with yourself, it's a delicate balance of pushing ourselves out of our comfort zone a little bit, but also knowing when we just need a moment to breathe. And by the way, with these vision boards, just to interrupt myself here, this is something I work on over the span of a few weeks. I mean, this is just personally. You can do this however you want. You can do it all in one afternoon. I personally like to kind of sit with it, come back to it a little bit, add more, maybe even remove something that I'm like, ooh, I actually don't feel that aligned on that. It's a really fun and pressure-free process. But by seeing our goals, these energies that we want to embody and the things that we want around us every day, staring back at you, that can be a really great motivational tool to keep working on these things. And the other thing I love about vision boards is that they're a really amazing way to lift your mood and shift you into a more positive mindset. So thinking about how each visual representation makes you feel, why it's important to you. Again, that why behind anything we're doing, it's so imperative. And how you feel in the future when, and if, I'm going to say when, not if, these things come into your life. how impactful that would be, how life-changing that would be. We can all feel stuck at times or lack the energy to complete a specific goal. Who hasn't, right? Grief or not. But revisiting your vision board and connecting with your goals and these visions for yourself can increase your productivity, it can reduce your procrastination, and inspire you to not only get going, but keep going, right? And again, have fun with this process, okay? Don't overthink it. Don't ever feel like you need to, do it all in one sitting. Like I said, come back to it as you see fit. Keep tweaking it, even into a new year if you want to. Consider this a living, breathing thing. And as far as like where you put this board, put it wherever it resonates with you. If you're doing it in a physical form, perhaps your office, bedroom, maybe even your bathroom, right? There's no rules here. It's completely up to you. If you're doing a digital version, and this is actually what I've done the last few years, though I highly encourage a physical copy and really, taking the time to put that together. It's putting it on paper. There's something so powerful about that. But printing it out or having it as the background on your computer, that is what I do, is a great place to look at it every day and to be reminded. So that's all I have to say about vision boards, but again, cannot recommend them enough. Number 4, identify short-term and long-term goals when you are visualizing this best life for yourself. So this one is a bit technical, and when you're doing these visualization exercises, I actually really want to encourage you to do it more from your heart and your soul. I want your heart and your soul to lead you here. As I've mentioned, don't overthink this. Don't get too tactical with it. And don't get too hung up on the goals that you feel like you just have to achieve. It's really important to allow some flow in this process to come in and out. But honestly, I can't very well skip this step and this recommendation because it can be very helpful for a lot of people. And I personally have a little type A brain in me, so I just really appreciate this practice too. It's nice to be a little analytical sometimes about it. We got to cover all the bases here, right? But I also say this because with grievers especially, compartmentalizing things into short and long-term plans or goals can really help a lot, and it can make things feel more digestible. So I'd be remiss if I didn't cover this. So if it helps, break down your vision into achievable, realistic, short-term and long-term goals. This step-by-step approach can make the process a little bit more manageable, a little bit less overwhelming, and of course, can even help you track your progress. So whether this is literally just a side-by-side list of short versus long-term goals, if you have it jotted down in a planner or an Excel document, whatever works best for you and your brain here. But either way, all this to say, when there are larger overarching goals or visions that we have for ourselves that we want to reach, it can be very exciting, but like I said, it can be very overwhelming too. And sometimes that fear or that hesitation or that overwhelm can really stop us in our tracks. It can stop us before we even get started. So, again, just empowering you here, breaking them down into a more step-by-step, action-focused way into those steps can be a really helpful practice. Number 5, explore new opportunities. Especially in grief, I want to start this off by saying that I think it's really important to do this when we're ready. When we're coping with loss, it's, as I kind of alluded to this before, it's this delicate balance. We have to have the awareness to know when things are feeling too overwhelming or just too much, right? When we have to take a step back. But we also kind of have to find and discover and tap into this wherewithal to challenge ourselves too, to determine when things feel okay or good enough to possibly explore or try out or dabble in. And that's just it. That is really what I want to get across here. It's just about trying. It's just about trying. There are things in the earlier parts of my grief where I was kind of like interested and I wanted to start getting into something, but then I got there and I was like, oh, this is too much. I'm just not ready for this. Like, talk to me in 3 to 6 months, right? But then truly with time, with the grief work, I got into it again and it felt better. It felt more aligned. The timing felt better. So, things that feel amazing and expansive to me now certainly wouldn't have felt that way just after my parents died, right? Why? Because I wasn't ready. It's pretty simple. That's the beauty that this great combination of time and grief work can give us. So when you're ready, embrace new opportunities that align with your vision. And, this might involve exploring new hobbies, pursuing educational goals. That is something I've done big time in 2023, and it has completely opened my mind and brought me that expansion that I've been looking for. And it has been just the biggest gift. Engaging in activities that bring you joy and fulfillment, right? Like, have fun with this process. If there's anything in grief that I know is so hard to have, it's just fun sometimes. So I am giving you the permission, not that you need it from me, but I want you to give yourself the permission to have fun. You never know what might come up for you. It could be something you completely did not expect or see coming. And again, that could be the greatest gift you've ever received or given yourself, something you never thought you'd explore. And if it doesn't feel aligned or empowering, phase out of it or try something else, or perhaps come back to it later. That is the beauty of this process. It is all in your hands. It is all up to you. Number 6, and this is a really important part in visualizing our best lives for ourselves, adapt and adjust. This goes along with the last point a little bit, but I encourage you to just be adaptable and adjust as needed as you're doing all of this, especially as a griever, as someone who has been through a difficult time in whatever that looks like for you. There is so much to figure out and feel out here. What might feel good one day, or literally even one moment, doesn't necessarily feel good the next. Is this exhausting and confusing? You bet. This isn't exactly the most fun part of grief. But think about it this way. This is a beautiful opportunity to take your foot off the gas a little bit, take some pressure off, and just be. Just be. That's all any of us actually are. We are just here, being. Be with yourself, with your thoughts, and with what feels good to your soul to do. Acknowledge that this might change and welcome that adjustment. That is nothing to fear. That is what we need to allow into our lives, into our orbit. Truly, this is some of the best advice I can give in grief to fellow grievers, to those who are going through a difficult time. Holding on to expectations or holding too tightly to things, just trying to make them work and forcing it, all of that can ultimately cause more stress and more dis-ease in a time when we're already feeling the heat from a lot of different directions. We're already feeling stress and dis-ease. We don't need to create more of that for ourselves, right? Grief or not, life is dynamic. It's an ever-evolving, living, breathing thing. And with that, circumstances may change. You never know what could be coming. You know this if you've endured loss, right? Especially one that you did not see coming. So more than ever, being open to adapting and adjusting your vision as needed, but being open to that, not in a way that is scary to us. It's just like, okay, universe, what do you have for me? Like, or God, whoever you want to talk to out in the ethos. It's just being open, not only for your mental health, but this is an amazing way to allow what's meant for you to flow in and come to you, to find its way to you. Because the more we resist, the more we shut all that down. We shut that off. Who wants that, right? We want abundance. We want all of these big and amazing and beautiful things to come our way. And flexibility is a key component of resilience in the time of loss. And all of this will only positively build on your life experiences, which is a really amazing thing if we can let it happen. Number 7, celebrate your progress. I have to end this with probably the most important aspect of this entire process, which is to celebrate it, right? This is an ever-changing process, as we've been saying. And with that being said, celebrating your progress should also never end. Celebrating the small victories along the way. That's it. The small ones and the big ones. Recognizing and acknowledging the progress that you have made and continue to make, no matter what that looks like. And I mean this so wholeheartedly. This is something I've really put into practice myself. It has completely changed the way that I view my successes and my grief. And I'll be very honest, I'm still working on this too. This is not an easy thing. We don't always feel motivated to celebrate ourselves. We often feel kind of down. We can feel defeated. Each day can be a battle. And sometimes this is certainly true for myself. Perhaps you can relate to this, but there are times where I find myself just going. I'm on to the next thing. I'm on to creating the next thing, to, doing the next thing. And I just almost to the point of like, it's coming from a heart-centered place. Like I'm motivated to do it. I feel like it's coming to me for a reason. It's all very exciting. But there have been times, and this is a big learning for myself this year, I have to slow down and really appreciate what I've built, what I've done so far. I've done so many things this year. We got to give ourselves some credit. So again, whether you're doing big life-changing things or it's just these little wins that we have day to day, literally getting out of bed, okay? Give that some attention. Just take 5 minutes, whatever this looks like for you. Close your eyes and breathe and be like, wow, I'm freaking awesome. I did something really cool today. I've built something really cool. This feels really good. We need to allow ourselves those moments of this feels good. I am proud of myself. And one thing I want to mention here, between guilt and regret that we might feel to pressure that we're moving on too quickly or perhaps not quickly enough, to feeling like life is moving right along as we feel stuck, it's hard to acknowledge small and big wins, whatever they are, throughout all of that. And we might feel resistant to that. But whether it's the fact that we, like I said, managed to, get out of bed and walk the dog that day, or we were able to have a well-balanced meal when we've been surviving on Taco Bell. And if you've been familiar with the Losses Become Gains podcast for a little bit, you know my affinity with Taco Bell and how it kept me going through my parents' deaths. That's something, okay? I feel like I say this incessantly, but there's a reason for that. It is all about the baby steps. Those baby steps with the hard things, the baby steps with those small wins and celebrations too. Each step forward is a testament to your strength, your resilience, and let me remind you, that is hard to find when we're grieving. Many people aren't open-minded to this change and evolution. Many people will fight it, maybe whether or not they realize it, right? And many won't even try. If you're open and trying, that, my friend, is step one. So celebrate that today, if nothing else. Celebrate listening to this podcast episode and just being open to it, right? Acknowledging that you could use a little more help, a little more inspiration in your life, perhaps a little more progress to live that life that you want for yourself as fully and in alignment as possible with your highest self. That is a beautiful place to start. And that's all we can really do to begin honoring ourselves and our loved ones, right? It's that one step. And that first step can be the hardest sometimes. I want to acknowledge that. But let me tell you, once we take that step and then another, that begins to feel really good. And there is little that can stop us after that once we've tapped into it. So Take that with you today. Keep that in the back of your mind. If you're not quite there yet, I assure you, you will get there one day. If you do find yourself needing a little more help in this area, I mentioned this before, my Intentional Life After Loss monthly membership is truly something I hope you explore. I am not trying to just sell you on something here, because if you're struggling with the loss of a loved one, even a loss of self, identity, a relationship, in my own way, I can empathize with where you are right now. We, in this process, can feel very overwhelmed and deeply, deeply hurting. We can often feel like there's no clear path forward, especially if you've lost someone very important to you that was like a key component of your life. Maybe I've kind of joked about this before, but there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Maybe we can't even find the tunnel. Perhaps you're simply just existing, but you're not really here. You're not truly living because it is just too hard or painful, or you just don't want to, right? Life has just lost this spark, this shine that it had on it before. And I can only begin to empathize and relate to your very specific and unique pain. That is sacred to you. But what I just want to really get across today is that you don't have to do it alone. And that is really where this membership comes in. And if you are wondering, what exactly is this membership, Tara? That's a great question. I'll give you a very quick rundown. It is a space where you can enjoy very more action-based coping tools and support every single month to guide you and help you heal your heart, namely after suffering the loss of a loved one. That is a lot of where my community is. They have lost someone that they love, whether it's a parent, a child, a sibling. So everything that we've talked about today, we take this and we go deeper together. That means you have an online space where you feel supported, seen, heard, validated, all of those beautiful things, alongside a grief support group, which you can participate as little or as much as you'd like, or you can work your way up to it. There's a lot of flexibility here. You have access to me as your grief coach, and ultimately just watchable and downloadable tools that just help empower you and teach you how to cope with your day-to-day grief and to do things exactly like what we've talked about today, to visualize this best life for yourself. But we do it in a way that doesn't feel like it's too much too fast. I really want to hammer that home, because I know this, big intentional life after loss, like that can feel like a lot. I understand that. But that day-to-day, that can be the most difficult part, right? After the funeral or the memorial is over, and the initial weeks after the loss are over, after people sadly might slowly stop checking in on you, after everyone seems to think that you're okay when really you're still struggling. I'm talking to you. I want to help you feel less alone and feel heard and understood, and to have the tools to help you through that. The goal is for you to find consistent comfort and support and guidance in your grief journey, whatever that looks like for you, in a way that is just, it's at your fingertips as you need it, right? And to be intentional with our grief means, to me, simply that we give it the time and attention that it deserves. To be open-minded to the grief work, that's very important. The healing journey, and understanding that the goal is not necessarily to be, quote, healed, right? It's not necessarily like, okay, once we're over this mountain, that's it. All is hunky-dory. Like, no, this is complicated. This is for life. But it's understanding and welcoming the things that our grief can teach us. We've already begun to visualize our best life here and have that conversation. So imagine how much more you could tap into this if you're not doing this already. It's just understanding that it's a very complex process. It's gonna ebb and flow, just like everything we talked about today. And you know what? That's okay. Because all we can do as grievers is approach it as carefully and thoughtfully as possible, prioritizing ourself and our soul and our self-care and all the good things, as we do that, and making sure to give ourselves the proper time and energy to do what we got to do to feel good every day. It's just approaching our grief with love and in a way that is just very holistic and very digestible, because we're already overwhelmed as is, right? We don't need to pile on. So with that all being said, just something to leave you with today, details about this membership and other ways to work with me and just continue working on your grief are all linked in the show notes. I hope you explore that if you need it, because I am, as always here for you. So I hope this episode has given you just something to think about today, perhaps even prepped you and made you feel a little bit better about going into a new year, or really whenever you're catching this episode, if it's not at year end, whatever phase of life you're in. And I hope it inspired you to take a little action today and start building and creating that beautiful, intentional life after loss that you want for yourself, because you are truly so capable of it. I hope you have a fabulous day, a beautiful new year, and I will catch you in the next episode.